Hi guys, today we're going to be taking notes on compound interest. So last week we talked about growth and decay, and that's kind of like simple interest, finding how much your investment's just going to grow at a fixed rate over a certain amount of years. So compound interest, as you saw from the Nearpod, is when your interest gains interest. So if we look at this formula right here, the part that is different than what we learned last week comes from the N. Everything else, if you rewrite it, is basically the same as it was last week, which is just the growth equation. So let's go through and define what each of these variables mean. So A is just going to be our final amount. P is our principal amount, or what we call the starting amount. R is rate. T is time. And the N is the times that your interest gains interest. So that's what we call the number of times compounded. And those N values, there are common ones that the bank and any types of loans or investments use. And so we're going to define some of those common N values right now. So if the bank or whatever says that your interest is gained annually, that means your N value is just going to be 1. So that is annually. Some banks will tell you that they are going to do it biannually or semi-annually. And when that happens, that's twice a year. So your N value would be 2. If they do it quarterly, that means they're going to do it 4 times a year. So every 3 months. If they say monthly, that means once a month. So 12 times a year. If they say daily, that means they're going to collect interest every single day of the year, so 365. So let's go ahead and look at our first example. So it says you borrow $59,000 for 2 years at 11%, which is compounded annually. What total will you have to pay back? So if we look at our formula, or our formula, our P value, our starting amount, is that 59,000. Then our rate is 11%. So remember, we take 11, move our decimal left 2. So our rate will be 0.11. And compounded annually, if you remember from just a second ago, that means 1 time a year. So N is 1. And then for 2 years, so T is 2. Then we're just going to plug that in our equation. So 59,000, 1 plus 0.11 over 2. No, I'm sorry, over 1, because N is 1, times 1 times 2. Then we go to Desmos and we type that in exactly like you see it. So we're going to say 59,000 times 1 plus 0.11 over 1, and we raise it to the 1 times 2. So our answer is 72,693.9. So that is how much money you would have to pay back after 2 years. So you started with a loan for $59,000, and only after 2 years you're already paying back $72,000. So that's why 11% is horrible. So in the future, don't ever try to get an 11% loan, because that's just way too much money. So let's look at example 2. I encourage you to pause the video and try it on your own and then return to see if you get it right. Okay, so our starting amount, our p-value is 28,600. Then we know our rate, it said 7.9. So we move our decimal left 2. So it becomes 0.079. It says it's compounded semi-annually. So that means 2 times a year. So n is 2. And it is after 2 years. So time is also 2. So we're going to plug this in. So 28,600, 1 plus 0.079 over our n value of 2, and then n times t. So we go and we're going to plug that in to Desmos. So we're going to have 28,600, 1 plus 0.079 over 2 raised to the 2 times 2, which is 4. So our final answer is 33,393 and 66 cents. So we round that 5 up to a 6. Okay. Then example 3 is a little bit different than the other 2. So it says you would like to have $5,000 in 6 years. The interest rate is 5% compounded quarterly. How much do you need to invest today? So that means we are not solving for our final amount. We are solving for our starting amount. So in this case, our final amount is going to be $5,000. We do not know P. We know our rate was 5%, so we take the 5, move our decimal left 2, so our rate is 0.05. Our n value is compound quarterly, so that means our n is 4, and we know it's in 6 years, so t is 6. So let's plug everything into our equation. So we're going to have 5,000 equals, we do not know our p-value, so then we're going to say 1 plus our rate, which is 0.05, over our n value, all raised to n times t. So the easiest way to do this is to take everything on this side and plug it into Desmos. So we're going to do 1 plus 0.05 over 4 raised to the 4 times 6. So then we're going to take this decimal, 1.3474, and replace everything in those parentheses besides p. Then, to solve, all we have to do is get p by itself. So if this is p times 1.3474, we just divide. So divide both sides by 1.3474. And that will give us our starting amount. So I'm going to say 5,000 divided by 1.3474. So our starting amount was $3,710.85.